Good day to you as we begin our second week in Critical Perspectives on Social Media Use. I'm using that title at the beginning of my talk today to keep in front of us what we're doing. We are critically analyzing social media use. It's not easy. It's challenging. It's challenging for all of us, but especially for those of you who have not yet really had classes where you have to construct an argument based on chapter readings, or really another person's research, and build that into your construction of the argument. That's something that many of you or some of you are learning to do. And I'm staying with you on that. I'm monitoring the class as a whole. I'm seeing if overall the class is not performing where I would like to see it do well, then I'll make some adjustments at the end. My vested interest in this class is that you learn. But at the same time, I have to make sure that you are following the requirements, especially when the requirements are laid out for you in writing on the syllabus and on D2L. If I'm asking you to use chapter concepts to construct an argument, and you're not using any chapter concepts, I can't find any quote marks, no page numbers, then you're not going to do well on those posts. Okay, so rededicate yourself to reading the examples that are going around and also to making sure that you understand the assignment. And if all else fails, I am here for you to meet with me during office hours, either by phone or in person. Now, I mentioned today is a big day, or this week is a big week, or I kind of implied that, and that's because also today we are starting Project Viral. Okay, so those are some things that I'm building into my instructor video this morning because I'm trying to avoid getting to yet another dressing down of an internet web-based company. Yeah, we'll be talking about Google today, and it's worse than even the chapter depicted. The chapter did a total takedown of Google. I mean, it conceivably asks the question of whether Google is good or evil. I don't really care for that terminology. It puts it in religious terms, which I don't care for. And yes, the chapter does, in some parts, talk about the benefits of Google, but overall, this is a political economy critique based in Marxism taking down Google. And the reason I said that it's worse than you thought is because the market share of Google when this book was written, which is the data is from about 5 years ago, the market share of Google was around 70%. And I've just looked up the market share of Google according to Statista, STASTITA.com, which is a well-recognized internet data collection firm. The market share of Google today is 90.77%. And that's consistent going back to January, April, July, October. It's in the 90s all the time. So Google has only used its accumulation of capital, to put it in the book's terms, to gain even more market share and more monopoly and more ultimately control over ideas and people's behaviors on the internet. So let's talk about Google. What is it? What does it do? How does it leverage capital? I'm not going to get into a lot of the laws that are happening with taxation at the end of this book because they're UK specific. They're specific to the UK and Ireland. I'm going to focus more on the bigger ideas, and actually some of the information is out of date with Google. Let's make the point right away, which the book is not able to make because it's 5 years old, that Google is not just the largest internet company, it's the largest media company in the world. Well, actually its parent company is Alphabet. The Alphabet company, it reorganized and is the parent company of Google. It's focused more on investor relations. Google, as a subsidiary, is the largest media company in the world. It owns YouTube and it owns many different distribution channels for pushing out TV, radio, newspapers, etc. So it's a monster. It's gone past Fox. It's gone past Disney. It's unbelievable what this company does, and certainly that coincides with having a 90% market share. So what the chapter is trying to do, at least what it says it's trying to do, is trying to go beyond making a moral condemnation of Google. This company's a bad company. That's not what it's trying to do. It's trying to go beyond that to offer a sophisticated understanding of the company and where it is harming society from a political economy standpoint, and where there's some benefit to be gained from what Google's trying to do, and ultimately whether the system of capitalism within which Google operates is a system that will allow Google to fulfill those purposes that are socially beneficial. We're going to answer that question by the end. So let's make the first point about the ubiquity of Google. I don't know if you know that word. Ubiquity, when something is ubiquitous, it's everywhere. And what's interesting about Google is it's the perfect example of Web 2.0 with all this continuous sharing and potential egalitarianism, potential equality on the web. Because unlike products released by Hewlett-Packard or video games or any piece of software just about, or cell phone or iPhone, there are no versions of Google. It's not 2.0, 3.0, 6.0. It's continuous. It's continuously being being monitored and upgraded. And as such, it is not just shaping how we search, organize, and perceive information. It is almost solely facilitating today how we search, organize, and perceive information, because the average person, 90% of us, are using Google every time we go on the web. It's the home page. So let's look at the Google political economy now, a term that we're referring back to from some of our earlier theoretical work in this class. We know that Google is trying to leverage capital all the time. We'll talk about how it accumulates capital in a minute. But it's the biggest media company. It has YouTube, and its market value remained consistent even when there was a downturn in the economy in the year 2008, when a lot of businesses, and especially the advertising sector, lost money because people weren't spending money because of a real estate crash. But Google's profits remained consistent in the years 2008, 2010. And so it shows the sustainability of this company and how strong it is. And in fact, it controls over half of all the online search revenues, according to the book, although I think that's even going to be out of date now too. Over half of all the money that is profit from advertising on the internet and through other services, Google is making half of that. Now, the way that it was reorganized as a company, it was reorganized into Alphabet, the parent company. And Alphabet focuses more on investor relations and raising capital to support Google's side businesses, the experimental businesses, whereas Google is a separate entity, and that's the part of the web that Alphabet wants you to see when you see the company. So the profits that come out of Google are just absolutely tremendous. And the people who are in the corporate structure, which the book also talks about, have rightfully so within the capitalist system, made a gazillion dollars, so to speak. So how does Google accumulate capital? Let's talk about how it works. So the author returns to one of the earlier researchers he talked about in the book, Dallas Smythe, and Dallas Smythe's concept of the audience commodity. The audience commodity, the audience as a product. That's what a commodity is, something bought, traded, and sold. And we're doing that every time we're on the web. We've been establishing that in this class, and we continue to establish it. And yesterday my wife and I went to the beach, and we're hanging out afterwards, having a beer at the bar, and I'm like, we're working for Google right now. We're working for the internet. Every letter that we're typing here is collected and put in big data. And I know we're making that point over and over in this class, but I can't emphasize it enough, because the prosumer is such a different person than past media audience members in the history of mass media, and social media is certainly one more example of mass media. So we've got the audience commodity as an example. So how does that audience get commodified? So first of all, Google indexes the user content, and then Meta exploits it. It's a meta exploitation firm, according to the author. So what does that mean? So that means that Google is the one who is ranking what information is being sought by people on the web using Google. So it's indexing content. It's saying that when people search for a beach umbrella, they're coming to Coleman camping goods, and that's what they're choosing first. And so that's going to be the number one link that then appears at the top of the page rank. So it's indexing user content, but then it is also explaining how much that content is being indexed to advertisers and to other people. It does that by ranking the page order. So it's meta exploiting that free working audience that is out there. And think about it, users are employing Google services for free. But at the same time, the services that you're using are collecting all that information. And just think about all the Google stuff that you're using. Google search engine is the number one that we think of, but are you on Google+? Do you have Google Docs? Do you turn in stuff through Google Docs? Do you use Gmail as your email server? Do you upload stuff on YouTube? Do you use Google Maps? I was all over Google Maps yesterday trying to find my way to a typical difficult to find New Jersey Shore beach. Think of all the products and services that are used through all the chain of the Google empire and how much data is being collected from you every day. That data then is sold by Google to advertising clients. If you're a manufacturer of a beach umbrella, I want to get to people who are not living in Iowa. I want to get to people who are living within a drive of the beach. So that would include East Stroudsburg. And I want to get to those people who are most likely to buy my umbrella. That's going to depend on what kind of my umbrella. Is it like a college umbrella? Does it say East Stroudsburg University on it? Does it have a beer on it? Does it say Corona? Does it have a sports team on it, Philadelphia Phillies? That's the product is going to then dictate how I get after that audience. And Google's going to sell me that data. It's going to sell me the data, me, the umbrella manufacturer, on the people that are using Google Maps to go down the beach, on the people who are getting onto a wireless connection at a bar or restaurant on the beach, to the people who like the content of the umbrella that I'm selling, whatever the imagery is. Yeah, Google sells that, and they sell ads that match the keywords to ad clients. So if your keyword is beach umbrella, then they are selling that ad space to beach umbrella manufacturers. Every time you type in beach umbrella, these advertisers are going to come up either as a sponsored link or as a sidebar link. And then also Google has a different method for collecting advertising dollars. It auctions off that ad space. So every time somebody searches, for example, for Iran is a subject that may be searched for in a context of news. People want to, is it scary? Whatever, Iran is seizing tankers, etc. But in the sidebar that comes up, there's going to be a lot of spaces. And in fact, the sponsored links, there's going to be a lot of spaces that come up for advertisers who have bid for those spaces, and their bid was accepted more than other bidders. So you might find, for example, life insurance that's sold right there because people are feeling fearful about Iran. So this is a good time to get people afraid. I'm being cynical here. So let's see if we can bid on a spot for our life insurance. Now, here's the thing about ads. It's self-perpetuating. Is the ads that get clicked on more frequently are displayed more prominently. So click, 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 click. Now that ad's going to get bigger, bigger, bigger. It's all part of the package. So you can see that it starts to favor that system, those companies that are already successful, that already have successful searches, names that are already out there, that since those names are already out there, people already know about them, and that just continues to increase the popularity. This is how Google accumulates capital. It's constantly growing all the time. And then it has another product called AdSense. And AdSense is for third-party advertisers. So those other companies out there, Pocono Record or whatever, if you want to advertise a product, let's say you want to advertise a local restaurant here to go along with a remote that your radio station is going to be hosting at that restaurant, and you put it on your webpage, and you also want on that webpage to have an ad for the restaurant, Google AdSense allows website operators like the radio station or a restaurant to get click-through revenue by putting an ad for that product that people are clicking through and going to Google. Yeah, there are just so many ways that Google's making money. Let's move beyond, though, just beyond that kind of critique of Google, going beyond just the profiteering, the political economy side, looking at the audience commodity. Let's go into other areas of examining Google as a corporation to try and figure out whether it's a good company or a bad company. And the next area is that Google is a surveillance machine. It's a surveillance machine. Yeah, it's surveying all the time big data for capital accumulation. And as a result, it's also politically surveying. Yeah, think about that. So when you're trying to search through politics and make important decisions about who you want to vote for and what policies you'll support, the information that you're looking for is organized and structured and presented by Google. And so it's, in effect, structuring your political thought. And it uses an algorithm. An algorithm is a formula for determining the page rank of those links. And it's not just simply people selecting Coleman umbrellas more than Walmart umbrellas that gets Coleman to rise up. It's a bunch of other factors. It's how much money is spent by Coleman on ads. It's the importance of the people who are buying Coleman umbrellas versus Walmart umbrella. There's a lot of factors that go into that algorithm, but the point is, according to the author, that algorithm is susceptible to influence. It's susceptible to corruption. And Congress is having hearings all the time, not just for Google, but for Facebook as well, on what information is not appearing when people search because there's either an interest in suppressing it or it doesn't fit in with the company's corporate profit strategies. And so if you Google beach umbrella, you may never find that there's a company called Earthworm, just making it up, and that they actually produce really great. It doesn't exist because it doesn't come up in the first 2 pages of a search. So Google is a surveillance machine pushing us into being exposed to other areas beyond just our money and economics, into politics as well. You could say that Google constructs reality. Really, that statement does not fall short. And now to build on to that, let's talk about Google and ideology. I thought it was so interesting that Fuchs takes a privacy policy that most, well, really probably all internet websites that you have to access and register for. It takes the idea of a privacy policy, which has become very, very complicated. In the case of Google, it's just grown in pages and gotten so big. I mean, who really reads privacy policies today? But it's taken privacy policy and it has used it to target advertising towards the people who are signing the privacy policy, because when they're signing that privacy policy, they're giving away the rights of Google and Facebook and all the rest of them to apparently cater the information more to their taste. That's what's so appealing about it, right? But really what they're doing is they're saying, allowing us to collect even more big data so that we can find a way to leverage that big data into getting you to purchase stuff that you may not otherwise purchase. That's really what the book would say is going on here. So the privacy policies, they're not about giving you privacy. You read them, you say, I feel protected, right? I feel private. I have at least a policy that's in place there. I set my privacy settings on Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, Instagram. This is just another one of those things. I sign them at the doctor's office all the time. There's my privacy policy. In actual fact, it's just another method of marketing. That's the Google empire. The next area the author takes a look at is work at Google. What's it like to work for that company? And here, I think the author shows some fairness. He looks at a source of statistics called Glassdoor, which basically looks at people's comments about how happy they are at work. You can check that out for your own companies you want. He also looked at data on Reddit. You know, Reddit is an accumulating website for tracking what the rest of the internet is talking about. Goes on Reddit, Reddit, and the author looked at those data as well, and he did find that people at Google had above average salaries, and they had a lot of positive things to say about Google in terms of there being free food at the workplace, of being a relaxed environment in some ways. But also, Google is a place where there is a lack of work-life balance, that people feel pressured by their peers into working longer hours than they really want to. And because the company has a flexible policy as far as when you have to work, it doesn't have to be 9 to 5, it's not a traditional company, that Google is really, according to Karl Marx, according to Christian Fuchs, that really what Google is doing is engaging in a process of lengthening the workday. That's what it's doing. It's lengthening the workday so that it can maximize profits. Because when you lengthen the workday, you get to pay people for not working overtime. You go past those 10 hours. It's part of that day that people are voluntarily deciding to work longer. They're not being required to. They decide to stay long. Elongating that workday, not paying overtime, saving money on that. This is all part of the profit motive. And that's what people are complaining. There's a lack of work-life balance. When they leave work, what do they have? More work. They don't have family. They don't have time for socializing, etc., etc. And also fitness facilities. I forgot to mention that. That's at Google as well. So there's a balanced, I think, criticism that comes through Christian Fuchs there. And so now we move to the last part of the chapter that I want to talk about, because I'm not going to talk about the UK tax history with Google. And that is whether Google is, and again, I don't like these words, God or Satan. So the author, Fuchs, returns to Marx now, and he brings up the idea of antagonism of productive forces and relations of production. It's really difficult material to understand. Please stay with this chapter. Please go to the end of every chapter. Please don't think that you're going to come away from your reading understanding a lot of information. This is really heavy-duty stuff. It's based on some really heavy-duty thinking, but in the end, you will have a mountain of a theoretical framework that's going to be operating in the background for years to come that help you clarify some of these ideas. And this is one of them, the antagonism of productive forces and relations of production. So what this is saying is that every company has the possibility of productive forces. I mean, if you're manufacturing things, if you're a company that manufactures staples, it has the potential, right, to be a really great thing. It's going to help people organize documents and perform their jobs. Those are the productive forces. But then you have a natural antagonism that's in place there between the productive forces and relations of production, because relations of production are working in opposite to the productive forces in many cases because of the capitalist structure. So in a sense, to introduce this idea that Google users and all web users are exploited by Google, not just Google users, but all web users, because every time you use a web, you're being page ranked by Google. And then that information is presented to the Western world to say, this is what's popular. This is what is sellable. So Google users and all web users are being exploited by Google. So that is unnatural. And it works against the productive forces of good, of cooperation, which we outlined at the beginning of the chapter is really where the author would like to see, from a Marxist perspective, media to get to. There's not necessarily going to be cooperation on Google when these other factors of maximizing production, getting people to work long hours, getting people to give up their privacy, giving people the ability to upload photos that you are then able to quantify and sell, all of that works against the potential positivity. And so in a sense, we can answer the question that Google's potential is limited by capitalism. It's limited by capitalism. The capitalism encouraging surveillance in and of itself is limiting Google's ability to help us know what our world consists of. It becomes about surveillance rather than taking a look around. And so the author actually proposes a pretty radical idea. He proposes, or at least he suggests, what would happen if we turn Google into a public, non-commercial organization that gives a space, a virtual space for people to talk freely about any ideas that they want. He's been building to it, right? Wouldn't that be interesting, a government takeover of Google and say, since you already have the infrastructure, we already have so many people there, you already have the algorithm and your system developed, we're going to take it over in the public interest. We're going to take it over for the public good. We're going to make it a space, a free space, where anybody and everybody can speak, no matter what their power, their status, their economic viability, their education. Just make it about the public. What an interesting idea, right? Have a great day.